It probably hasn't escaped your notice of late that over the last couple of years we've seen an awful lot of new Chinese brands enter the European and UK car market. Now this is quite cyclical because, well, if you're my age, you'll remember back in the 70s and 80s it was the Japanese manufacturers that did exactly this as well. And then of course during the 90s and the noughties it was the Korean manufacturers. And the thing about them all was, it didn't take them long to go to being a sort of footnote in the marketplace to being quite dominant in the marketplace. And their products progressed from being sort of like, dare I suggest, cars that people could just afford to own to being cars that people wanted to own. There was a desirability with them. Look at the likes of Nissan, Honda, Toyota, and then obviously, you know, people like Kia, Hyundai, Subaru, so forth. You know, we then had sort of things that were kind of worthy but dull, like the Datsun Sunny, the Toyota Corolla, the Honda Civic. Now we've got cars such as Skyline, GTRs, Impreza Turbos, Civic Type Rs, S2000s, EV6s, Ioniq 5Ns. But there was one manufacturer that came from Korea that didn't really seem to sort of like move away from that budget, worthy but dull, not very desirable type of base plate, if you like, and that was SsangYong. And ultimately they paid the price for that because they were in the process of going bankrupt. But in the 11th hour they were saved by another Korean company, the KG Group, and now they're back in the UK, and now they're doing things rather differently, because KGM want to go from being cheap and cheerful to being downright desirable. And they're starting with this, their first all new product under the KGM banner, the Actyon. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the KGM Actyon. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now before we get started on this week's road test review of the KGM Actyon, it is of course the time where I would just ask a small favour of you. Let's just get it out of the way now, folks. If you're not already a subscriber to House of Cars, would you please consider becoming one? Please, pretty please. And then once you've done that, make sure you then press the bell buttons down below. And you do that because then you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live, so you won't miss it. Once you've watched the video, if you do enjoy it, so I hope you do, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and as always make sure you leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars I feature on the channel, such as the KGM Actyon and of course on the House of Cars channel overall. Now you're probably sitting there thinking, hang on a second Brian, what about the Torres, because you reviewed that before and you reviewed the electric one over on Auto EV. Surely that's the first one. That was the first car to come into the country wearing the KGM badge, yes, but this is the first actual KGM, because this was the first car that was developed under the KGM banner. So after the SsangYong thing had all happened and the KGM had signed on the dotted line, this is what they started off designing. And with this and the Torres, they don't really want to be here in the UK just being seen anymore as a sort of cheap, worthy sort of competitor to, you know, to the cars such as like the Hyundai Tucson, the Kia Niro, the Nissan Qashqai, cars like that. They want to be seen as absolute alternatives. They want to see customers look at these cars like you would look at those other ones. Now the Torres didn't exactly set my world on fire, in fairness. It was a okay type of car, but it wasn't exactly class competitive. So how's this one going to fare? However, as always, let's take a brief snapshot of the main points of the car before we start the full review. So the Actyon is a C-segment SUV that will compete with cars such as the Kia Sportage, the Hyundai Tucson, the Renault Austral and Toyota CHR. It comes with one driveline option, a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder petrol engine, driving just the front wheels through a 6-speed automatic transmission. Just one highly specified trim level is available here in the UK, the K50. And prices start from just under £39,000 before options. Now that's a bold price for this type of car. And let's be honest, in terms of its design, which we're about to talk about, it's not a bad looking thing. So is this the car that's going to turn the tide for what was the old SsangYong company under the new KGM banner and finally become a class competitive car that you could seriously consider instead of one of the more mainstream brands that you've been used to? Well, let's put it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Now, I'm not going to lie, I like the look of this car. I think this is a good looking thing. And let's be honest, if this was wearing a Kia badge or a Nissan badge or a Hyundai badge, we'd be singing its praises. So just because it's wearing a KGM one doesn't mean to say that I won't. It doesn't wear a KGM badge, well, not at the front at least. Now, I wonder whether or not that's maybe deliberate, to actually get people talking, to get people looking at it going, what is that? I wonder if that is a deliberate thing that they've done. And I like the look of the Torres, but this does, and it has a similarity to the Torres, but it does have its own style, and I think it's a better looking car than the Torres, I really do. Look at these slim DRLs up here, and then this light bar that goes across the front. I really like that, that's lovely. It's got a sort of butch, quite a, I don't want to say aggressive look, I don't mean it's aggressive, but it is a good looking thing, I think. These are the main headlamps down here. These are your main headlamp units. And again, like the Torres, it's got that sort of thing, the sort of trim area here, that's like the sort of like the corners of the Korean flag. So it's got those in the corner. I quite like that. I like the fact that they've done that. Obviously, you've got this lower area here, which is obviously for your cooling. There's a big sensor down there for the distance guided cruise control. There's a not so neatly integrated camera there, but it does have it. And then you've got this gloss black sort of like front splitter down there. And I think it looks quite smart in this metallic silver paint. If there's a couple of areas that I'm a bit questionable about, and in fairness, I didn't mind them on the Torres because it was a bit more of a butch SUV, but on this, are these needed? These stick-on handly things? I'm not sure. And this glossy black plastic scuttle thing here, it's not really offensive, but I do wonder on whether or not it's needed. But squint, there's a little bit of Range Rover Velar on this car, isn't there? And you'll see that as we go round to the back of it. But yeah, I think we're off to a good start. I think this is quite a good looking thing. Now, inside profile, again, quite stylish. It's a bit more of that kind of coupe-like SUV. Maybe in my head I was thinking of it being like almost like the coupe SUV version of the Torres. It's not, it is a different car in fairness. You've got the gloss black integrated roof rails there. 19-inch alloy wheels are standard on the car, and they're quite a nice design. They're this sort of diamond turn face, you know, and sort of like a graphite finish. The downside is ride quality. We'll talk about that when we drive it, but hey, look at this. Michelin tyres on it. Now that shows to me a little bit of depth of engineering in it. They've not gone for some cheap brand of Chinese ditch finders. They've actually gone and got themselves some Michelin, I think they're Primacy Pros, are they? Yeah, Primacy Tours. There you go. Front wheel drive only. There's no all-wheel drive version, so it just gives the pretense of being, dare I suggest, a butch all-wheel drive car, but it's not, it is front wheel drive. Big door mirrors as well, but and I'll talk about that when we're inside it because they're quite nice and practical. It sits quite high off the ground. Good ground clearance on the car. So again, you know, if you want to sit upright, you want that sort of like SUV, sort of like feeling when you're driving the car, you're certainly going to get it here. Just watch yourself as you're getting in and out of the car though, because it's quite a climb up. The doors, they pretty much come down to the bottom. There's a little bit of the sill just right underneath, but mostly the door wraps underneath it. So it gives you a nice, easy, clean sill to sort of get in again, which, as you see, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that's something that I do look for. Plus you get things like keyless entry with the car as well. Privacy glass here in the rear. There's just the one trim level, as I say, the K50. Everything is standard on it, okay? Big C-pillar though. That's the only downside. So rearward or rear three-quarter visibility is a little bit limited with that. But as I say, it's a bit more about being stylish than being practical, this car, in some respects. You know, body colour, sort of like, you know, wheel arch extensions. Quite like this sort of like little cutout area down there. It reminds me a little bit of sort of the Jaguar I-Pace sort of a little bit there as well. But then as you get to the back, you really will see that a lot of inspiration, I think, has been taken from the Range Rover Velar, as we will now see. Do you see what I mean? Tell me that's not a Range Rover Velar from the back. You know what I mean? This slim light strip, especially in this sort of silvery grey colour as well, which a lot of the Velars are done in. I think that really does remind me of the Velar. So this is obviously your thin strip of light bar across there. And again, these lights down the side here, like the Korean corners of the Korean flag that you'll see. I like that. I think that's quite cool. Rear wiper. Do like that, obviously. Practical. Reasonable sized roof spoiler. Just your KGM badge there, so that's the only external KGM badge apart from the wheel centres. And then you've got, now, the name, okay? Now, I've heard some people call it Actyon. Some people call it Action. KGM did when they did their whole marketing spiel on it, they called it Lights, Camera, Action. So I'm assuming that they want to be called Action. But it's seemingly an amalgamation of two phrases of act on and act young, which then would make sense to call it the Actyon. But I genuinely don't know. So if you've heard differently and I'm doing it wrong, please by all means let me know. But because KGM did that marketing thing, Lights, Camera, Action, that's why I'm calling it the Action. And actually it probably makes a bit more sense calling it the Action. Anyway, there we go. What else have we got? Well, we've got a reverse camera there, as you'd expect, and of course we've got parking sensors there, and then this gloss black diffuser area down at the bottom there. Like, I don't think it's a bad looking thing. I really quite like it. I think it's quite stylish. And I think it's quite a nice colour for the car as well. And it's, you know what I mean? It's not that cheap, cheerful, basic looking car, is it? You know, big wheels, nice designed alloys, good paint finish on it. You know, sort of like quite butch in some respects, looking from the front, stylish at the back. But look, it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? I mean, I can talk for days and tell you what my opinion like. It matters more what you think, though, because you might be out there considering a car in this class. Would you now consider one of these instead of, say, I don't know, a Qashqai or a, you know, a Kia or a Hyundai or, you know, a Renault Austral? Would you rather have one of these? Let me know in the comment section down below. Now, one of the real selling points of the Torres was its practicality. The Action, no different at all. 668 litres of boot space as standard, which is good. It's one of the biggest in class. And if you fold down the standard 60/40 bench in the back, that will take total capacity up to 1,568 litres. So it is a decent size of boot. You've got a relatively a level load entry in. You've got a lift up area in the back here where there's a little bit of storage area for dropping things in, such as high-vis jackets, you know, spare bulkheads, warning triangles, that type of thing, or storing maybe a really slim bag or something like that. But that's fine. And then there's some little pockets at the side here, you know, where I can put things such as my equipment boxes and mounts for GoPros, and they can drop in there. However, there's just a couple of, and I do mean I'm nitpicking here, okay, so please don't think of me. There's no tie-down points around the car, and there's no real sort of like little surprise and delight features for a family SUV, do you know what I mean? So you know where to put like a luggage net as such. There's one little hook that folds out from the side there. There's a 12-volt socket and then a boot light, and that's pretty much it. So it'd be nice to see some tie-down points maybe. You know, that would have been quite handy, you know, to put like a luggage net on. The only other downside I have, and again, it is a small thing that I'm talking about, is the rear roller blind, which is obviously just a material roller blind. It's got quite a sturdy metal frame to it, but it's mounted quite low down, just behind the seats. It could do with being a couple of inches up, and the reason being is this. If we take our big suitcase that we've got here, it doesn't slide underneath it if you put it in that way up. Now don't get me wrong, the suitcase still fits, but what we've now got is a space behind it. Now obviously you can stuff bags in there and things like that, but it'd be nice if you get the suitcases all the way to the backs of the seats in that upright on their side position. However, there's more than enough space for the 4 suitcases, as we will now see. So there's our large, there's our medium. Again, it won't go all the way back because it just hits the luggage blind. One carry-on, that particular carry-on, it's the same, it won't go right to the back, but this other carry-on, this one will, because it's slightly slimmer, that goes all the way there. And as you can see, there's a little bit extra space there. Plus, as I say, there's the area behind those cases. You could stuff jackets down, or softer bags, or carrier bags and stuff like that. So, as I say, good size of boot for class, nice flat entry in. You know, the fact you can also extend it by folding the rear seats down in a split fashion is good. A little bit disappointed with the height of the roller blind, but I mean, again, it's not the end of the world. And it'd be nice to see some little tie down hooks and things if you wanted to put luggage net in. But in fairness, size of boot for a family sort of like crossover SUV in this class, can't really complain about it. Which means rear accommodation is good as well. Very good. Quite a big car in the back. There's lots of space here. Now that's my driving position, and I'm 5'8", so there is a lot of lounging space back here. You also, like the front, sit quite high in the car. You know, it's almost that sort of stadium style seating. So you've got a good view forward. Now that's a good thing because actually it's quite dark in here. That's one of the downsides with the car. So again, you've got kids, smaller kids, you know, being able to see out the window, things like a high window line or a shallow window line. They need to be slightly up in the seat so they can actually see out to stop them feeling car sick. The other thing I would say is it'd be nice to see even just an option of a panoramic roof or even a sunroof, but there isn't one, nothing at all. So it's black headlining, black interior. You know, that's it. That's your lot. That's what you've got. But in terms of space, we can't really complain at all. Storage, good, yes. Elasticated pockets on the backs of the seats, plus a little secondary pocket to slide a mobile down into. There's door bins and they're shaped for water bottles, so again, you know, keeping the kids hydrated, no problem at all. As I say, one trim level, so very high specified as standard. You've got heated rear seats, which have got two-stage heating on, and that's the outer two seats that are actually heated. You've also got integrated sunshades in the doors as well. You know, again, that's a nice feature to have when you're thinking of a family car. Plus, you've got a flip-down armrest with two extra cup holders in there. You've got connectivity by opening this flap. There's two USB-C charging ports just underneath there, and it's nice the fact that they are actually covered. Isofix points, well, they're not behind any covers or so, but so they are visible. You just got to make sure that you locate your seat fine in them, and they're absolutely fine to get into. You can also control the front passenger seat from the rear, a little bit like you can with some of Hyundai's as well. So again, if you've got somebody on that side that needs a little bit extra space and there's no one in that seat, they can slide the seat forward as well. Plus, you've got these sort of like integrated handles on the top there. I don't think they're iPad holders or anything, but maybe you could get an accessory that hangs a holder off that, you know, if the kids wanted to put their iPads in there. But and face vents as well. So there's no heating and ventilation in terms of control back here, but at least you get two face vents which are mounted relatively high up. It's not a flat floor across because obviously it's a combustion engine car. But as I say, the tunnel itself isn't massive. You would get somebody sort of like sat in the middle, but suggestion would be it would be a slightly smaller person given sort of like, you know, the head height of the car, and that's, as I say, more of a raised seat there. So in terms of accommodation, absolutely fine. There's no problems at all when it comes to practicality, whether it's in the boot or whether it's in the rear seats as well. And there's a decent amount of equipment and a decent amount of things in the back here that most people will actually look for as well. So storage, face vents, connectivity, and of course the benefit of the heated seat and that window shade as well. So all in all, it scores really well in this section. Right, the interior. Now, it's a little bit like the outside of the car. It's not terrible. I know that might sound like I'm damning it with faint praise again, but you know what I mean. There's a few reviewers I read of this car, and they're all saying, oh, it's got cheap and nasty materials and all this. I tell you what, I've been in a lot worse. It isn't bad. You know, don't get me wrong, there are better, but there are a lot worse out there. Right, so let's talk about actually no, let's start with the materials. I quite like, you've got this squidgy, rubbery, sort of like really solid feeling dash up there, and then along the tops of the doors it's like an almost, you know, some cars I've tested, they've got that kind of neoprene, almost wetsuit material style thing. It's like a worn suede almost as well, but in a nice way. That looks quite classy. I quite like that. And it's only as you go further down you start getting into the slightly harder plastics and the fake wood and this weird carbon that's not carbon effect there. But it's different, and it's not piano black. I mean, it's glossy as well, so it will get fingerprints and dusty, but the fact it's got like a patterned weave through it, it's not horrific. I don't mind it so much. And maybe it's a bit at odds with this sort of like plasticky wood that's here, that's just along the bit of the dash. But, you know, the Torres was quite nice, got that copper finish. I quite like that. Maybe they should have done a different style of finish to not like that copper stuff there. Anyway, that's that. Right, what can we see here? So we've got two 12.3 inch screens, one infotainment, one driver's display here. So the infotainment screen, let's start with here. Now again, there are better systems out there than this, but there's an awful lot worse. The navigation icon, sorry, the infotainment icons here for things like navigation, they're maybe a little bit small, maybe a little bit difficult to hit on the move as such, but you do have inbuilt navigation, which is done by TomTom. You do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it is wired, but you know, okay, fair enough. So you can use things such as Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, other navigation systems are available as well. So you do have that ability. You've also got the ability to have widen the screen, so if you want a really wide screen sort of like nav, or if you touch, he says, I'm maybe not touching it right, it brings up this climate menu. Now this is one of the only downsides here. You do have to use the screen for pretty much everything. There's no physical buttons on the car apart from the ones on the steering wheel, really, in fairness, okay? So for things like adjusting temperature, okay, so for instance, if you're using a nav like this, or if you're on CarPlay or whatever, you've got to go into the actual screen here, adjust your temperature, and sometimes that's maybe a bit awkward from the passenger seat to lean across and do this, okay? The other thing was, you can't see a volume control here because it's here. You swipe down from the top, there's your volume control. So if you're from the passenger seat there, and after a while that just, see, there you go, it disappears. Again, you know, should we have a volume knob there, or it be a permanent icon on that side of the screen? You can adjust it from the steering wheel, not a problem, but if your passenger wants to turn down the radio or whatever to talk to you, they've got to swipe down from the screen to turn the radio down. Okay, Joe, just while I'm there as well, by the way, that's one good thing is, don't know if you saw that there, there's your speed limit assist there. So that's in that shortcut menu. There's a few things up there, such as turn off your stop start, hill descent control, dynamic stability control, what else is there? Parking sensors, the drive mode button, the camera view, and the thing to tell it that you're not drowsy at all and you don't need to stop for a break. That's in there as well. The lane keep assist button is on the steering wheel, and I think that comes from the Hyundai group, because that button graphic looks the same, as does the icon and the dash look the same. So look, as I say, it's not horrific, it's not best in class by a long shot, but it certainly isn't the worst. So again, not too bad there. And as I say, TomTom for the navigation, and you've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well, and Bluetooth media, so there you go. Right, you move then across to the driver's display, and again, you can change that depending on how you see fit. So there's a button on the steering wheel here, so at the moment it's showing the navigation map. Now obviously that is just for the TomTom nav, it won't put the Apple nav in there if you're using CarPlay, for instance. Or you can scroll through till you get actual, I'm not saying they're not dials, but you know, numerics for what you're actually doing. So in other words, the speedo, the revs sort of like on this side, and it doesn't have to look like BMWs. You know, this sort of almost arrowhead, opposite arrowheads, or pointed brackets like BMW do now. I think that's quite, and the graphics are actually quite easy to read. The font they use is quite nice, it's very simple, it's all italicized. I don't mind it. I genuinely think it's not bad, you know. So you can scroll through in various different little bits and pieces. You can also put your trip meter there, you can have your driver assistance systems there, so your radar guided cruise control, so I see you can have the map in there, and I think you can also have the media in there. Yes, you can put the media, have media, whatever media you're having in there. So again, there's a good amount of configuration available for the dash for the driver. Oh, while I'm talking about the steering wheel, here's a little thing for you for your next pub quiz. The first model steering wheel to have a KGM badge on the first model from the company to have the KGM badge on the steering wheel. That's the Actyon. Okay, the Torres has got the old SsangYong badge. This is the first one that has the KGM badge. There you go. What have you got here? Well, you've got your modes, which is, you know, your mode for that, in other words, so Bluetooth, music, radio, whatever you want there. So this controls your media on this side here, as well as your heated steering wheel, which is standard because there's only one car available, one model trim available, so that's standard. And then over on the right hand side, you've got your cruise control, your lane keep assist, and your button for choosing your navigation, for your instrumentation panel there. It looks like you've got two paddles here that are really far inset, but they've actually got longer paddles behind the steering wheel, and they will adjust your braking system. You know, no, they won't. They'll adjust the gearbox. What am I talking about? They'll adjust your gearbox, so you can go up and down your gearbox because it's a automatic transmission. So you can use that to do that. The column stocks, quite a nice, you know, a nice sound to it, but it's also got a nice action to it as well. You know, they're not terrible, you know what I mean? There's a bit of a quality feel to them. And as I say, I don't mind the top of the dashboard. It's only as you start to get a bit lower down you can start to really complain about this sort of fake grey wood and stuff. And then as I say, you've got this console area here, so you've got 2 cup holders here, you've got a wireless charging pad in there, you've got another big open console down there for storage, there's a little bit in there for storage, plus you've got, you know, a reasonably deep centre armrest thing as well. And then you've got these seats which are like Alcantara around the shoulders, and then leather, and it is leather down the bottom, which are, if from memory serves me correctly, they are heated and ventilated. That's not bad, you know what I mean? That's pretty good. Steering wheel's a weird shape, as I was going to say that earlier, this hexagonal steering wheel. I'm not sure that's maybe ideal, but you know, there you go. And then you get physical controls on the door panel and stuff. Now the driving position itself, you sit quite high, okay? That is the seat as far down as it will go at the back. You can tilt it up at the front, which is good because I like it tilted at the front. But my bum is down as low as it will go, and I still feel like I'm quite high in the car. So a bit like the Torres, you do get that SUV-esque sort of, you know, view out of the car. Talking of view, your rear 3/4 visibility is brilliant because of that styling, that pillar. But you know, what else can you expect, you know, for the design of the car, you know, so that's the trade-off. But you do get big door mirrors on it, you know, they get big squared off door mirrors on the car, you know, which are nice and clear to see through. And the actual quality of it, okay, yeah, we could pick fault with it, you know, there are areas where, you know, the door bin sides, they do feel a bit flimsy. I've felt better door cards. You know, there's areas of the lower dash, which it's a harder plastic, but it feels well bolted together. Everything feels solid enough, and as I say, it's when you start moving up, you start seeing, you know, softer materials that feel quite decent. And you know, this armrest, for instance, is quite nice, sort of soft leather. It's quite nice, you know, put your arm on. It's a real mixed bag. I don't know how to be with it, because as I say, when I read a lot of people saying about it and said, oh, it's really cheap plastics and stuff. It's not the best, but it's not terrible. It's okay. I don't mind it so much. Don't get me wrong. As I say, I could pick fault with it, and there are better cars in the class. But I think some people have been unnecessarily harsh towards it in some respects. There we go. That's what I think. It's now some of the cracks in the car start to appear. And I'm going to start here, under the bonnet, because KGM are entering into the UK as a very low volume car manufacturer, in the sense that, you know, they don't want to set the world on fire as such. They want to be taken seriously, but they're not going to be pumping these things into the UK, which means that they don't need to meet some of the criteria for the low emission vehicle mandates and such like, which is a good thing because there's no electrification on this car at all. This is what you get. It's a 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and that produces 163 PS and 280 Newton meters of torque. Now, it's surprising that there's not any form of hybridization available on this car, especially when you think of some of the competition that this car is going to meet in the marketplace, and especially when you consider the price of it, which obviously we'll get on to a little bit later. Still, that's what we have. If you want electrified KGM, then obviously there's the Torres EVX, but there's not going to be an electric version of this. Maybe a hybrid in the future. I think it's going to be needed personally. I think the market will dictate it, but there you go. The other thing that's a little bit disappointing, dare I suggest, is the actual MPG of the car, because KGM quote a combined MPG of just over 33 miles to the gallon, and again, I find that quite poor in this class of car, and something like even mild hybridization would help that. There's only one transmission choice as well. It's a 6-speed automatic transmission, and as I say, there's no 4-wheel drive option. It is purely a front-wheel drive car. So yeah, as I say, it's starting just to show some cracks in its facade now. I wonder what it'll be like when we get it out on the road. Let's find out, shall we? Right, so as I say, there are some cracks in the veneer of the Actyon when it comes to the technical side of things. And there are more start to spread when we get it out onto the road. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to be very, very clear about this. This is not a bad car, okay? You know, when we think to ourselves these days as motoring journalists, we do seem to say, oh, nobody builds a bad car these days. They do, people do. You know, there's no doubt about it. There are bad cars out there. The Skywell BE11 is an awful car to drive. This isn't awful, okay? It's not. But nor is it class competitive. And this is the thing with it, you see, this is the problem I sort of have with it, because KGM are being quite bullish with the pricing of the car, as we'll see, you know, and it's one trim level, and okay, yes, it's really well equipped, but obviously you're paying that price for that. So at the moment, all you're really paying for is the equipment level in that sense, because when it comes to dynamics, well, I'd trade some of this standard equipment for it behaving better on the road. So let's talk about the first thing about it in terms of its performance, okay? So it's 163 PS. Its 0 to 60 time is over 10 seconds. I think it's a 10.8 seconds, okay? So fair enough. All right, it's no firecracker. But as I say, there's a practicality with it, and you know, it's a family car at the end of the day. No one's expecting it to be a sports car in that sense. So why make the ride so firm on it, KGM? That's the problem with it. It is really firm on the... Now I suspect a lot of that is to do maybe with the 19-inch wheels, I'm not sure, and the lower profile tyres. So again, a lower spec model, you can hear the rattle, that's my camera rattling. My camera on the door there, you know, it's rattling, and normally it's on a gimbal, so it shouldn't rattle, but it's rattling because the suspension is so firm. So, you know, shouldn't you maybe offer it in the lower trim, guys, you know, with, I don't know, 17-inch wheels, higher profile tyres, make the suspension a bit softer? That's what's needed. It really is, because, well, I say it needs a bit more than that, but in fairness, that would solve a lot of the problems that the Action has once you get it out onto the road. The second problem is, like I was saying earlier when we were under the bonnet, there's no hybridisation with the car, there's no electrification with it. Now okay, as I say, KGM offer the Torres EVX if you want an electric KGM, but a hybrid in this marketplace I think is essential. People are really turning on to hybrids in a big way, you know, and if you look at the things such as the Kia Sportage, the Hyundai Tucson, you know, Renault Rafale, the Austral, Nissan Qashqai e-Power, those things, you know, people, somebody that's not ready for an electric car but thinks I still need to do something about lowering running costs and dare I suggest just being a little bit more socially responsible, they're okay with hybrids. So why not offer one? Why not have it as a hybrid? Because what you get with the hybrid is that instant little slug of torque as you move away. It would make it just that little bit quicker. Whereas with now, if I got to put my foot down, I'm at the speed limit. That was quite a delay. It's quite dim-witted, the gearbox. You know, it's a 6-speed auto, and you can manually shift. But when you rely on kick down, it takes its time, it really does. It's really dim-witted to actually get up there, dare I suggest. And it's not particularly pleasant to get up there. That's the other thing. It's not noisy. I don't want you to think that it's a noisy car. It isn't. You know, it's actually, you know, fairly pleasant in terms of once you get it on a fairly smooth piece of road at a reasonable sort of like average speed, it's okay. But it's far from where you would want it to be for the other cars that it's competing with. That's the problem. That's where I'm having the issues with the car with. The steering. Okay, again, I appreciate it's not all about, you know, kissing the last millimetre off the apex as you dive for it in a car like this, but it would be quite nice to have some sort of feel through the steering. The upside of it is it's actually not a difficult car to manoeuvre at low speed. You know, so again, if you're in like the supermarket car park or you're outside the school gates and you're just trying to turn around or whatever, it's not heavy steering in that sense. It's not fingertip light, you know, it's got a reasonable weight to it. It's just that you don't really know what's going on underneath the car. You know, I mean, it does it turns the corner, and that's about it really in that sense. Now, I know you're probably going to sit there thinking to yourself, well, Brian, come on now, let's be fair. You've said yourself, it's not a sports car, you don't expect it to be and all this. I don't. But there are just nicer cars to drive in this class that don't cost the same as this. They cost thousands of pounds less. That's my big issue with it. If this car was 29 grand, yeah? If they brought the car out at 29 grand and gone, there you go. And I appreciate, and as I said before, they're not trying to be a budget brand anymore. But if they said it's 29 grand, let's get people in the door and do away with some of the spec, you know, there's an argument to be had there going, well, wow, that is good value for money. But you can get so much better for so much less from brands that, dare I suggest, that you know about. You heard that little alarm thing there. That's the other thing. I mean, I've turned the lane keep assist off and the speed limit warning off. When they're on, they are really quite intrusive. They really do bing and bong at you. If you do anything wrong in this car, it really doesn't like it at all. And you get properly told off, like a schoolmistress telling you off for not bringing in your homework and saying that the dog ate it. It's really, really like that. You know, it's like, how dare you? How dare you venture out of your lane? How dare you do 31 miles an hour on a 30 mile an hour speed limit? Oh, you know. So yeah, you got to get used to that. That's the first thing you do, is turn it off. Hang on, let me just. I have to be really careful in this width restriction because I've always got cameras on the outside of the car, so I've got to be careful I don't whack one off it. So yeah, that's that. So the last thing really is to talk about is the brakes in terms of its dynamics. So this is a particularly bumpy bit of road that I'm going down. So let me just not talk about the brakes for a second. Let's just try it down here. See, it's thrown me out of the lane because it's quite bouncy. It's quite, you know, it's going down that road. It's been chucked around a little bit, and then it moves out of lane because it's just jolted the steering, the front wheels forward, and then it's told me off for going out of the lane. And then, come on, there we go. That's us. See what I mean? And that's really sort of like, it's almost like it's going. Stop it! It's like it's going through treacle, going from first into second gear there through that auto box. As I say, it's not awful. And I know that sounds like I'm damning it with faint praise, because as I say, I bet there are people out there that will drive this and go, oh shush. There are people out there that will drive this and go, actually this is quite nice. You know, I like the fact it's got ventilated seats, it's got CarPlay, it's got Android Auto, and as I said, I think it looks really good. I really like the look of this car. As I say, if this had been a Kia or a Hyundai or a Nissan, we'd all be going, wow, that's a, you know, okay, I admit I don't like the plastic bits on the bonnet, but you know what I mean, the rest of it, I think it looks really good. And yeah, they've ripped off Range Rover, but yeah, there you go. What is it they say? Imitation's the sincerest form of flattery. But my point is, you know, it's just, it needed to be better, and I did hope it was going to be better. You know, I read some other people's reviews and I thought they'd been maybe a little bit harsh in the interior and stuff, and I think they are. I think it's okay. Again, you know, there's a lot worse out there. You know, some of the Stellantis products not that great, you know, at this price point. So I do think it's okay, but my struggle is, you know, it's, you know, getting on for £40,000 for a car that really, as I say, do away with some of the equipment, get the basics right first. You know, learn to walk before you run, KGM. That's what I would suggest. You haven't done that with this car. You've broken into a sprint straight away, and dare I suggest, you're running out of puff. You should have started off slow and built up. Anybody that's been, you know, this car game, anybody will tell you it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And thank God it's not, with a 0 to 60 time over 10 seconds. But that's not my point. Right, let's discuss price. Price. Well, there's only one trim level, and it's well specified, the K50 trim, and everything that you've seen here, bar the metallic paint, is standard on the car. So the heated and ventilated seats, heated rear seats, CarPlay, Android Auto, nav, all your usual accoutrements that you're going to want. But it's £38,649 before the option of metallic paint is fitted. The only other options that you can have on the car are really dealer fitted things, such as tow bars, obviously as we discussed earlier, you know, side running steps, you know, boot mats, that type of thing. So it's not really factory options. But yeah, 38.5 large bags of sand. Now, here's the thing about that. You know, I get it's well equipped as standard, and it is just the one trim level, but it really needs to be, because obviously you've got competition such as the Nissan Qashqai, the Kia Sportage. You know, they're good cars in this market, and not only are they priced thousands of pounds, but not hundreds, thousands of pounds below this car in well specified trim form, but they also give you the chance to have with a hybrid drivetrain, which keeps your running costs down as well. And I think that's maybe a trick that KGM haven't really thought of in that sense. In terms of warranty, however, 5 years, 5-year warranty with it, 100,000 miles. Good warranty with the car, a lot better than some manufacturers give you, but again, less than you would get from the likes of Kia and Hyundai. Now, in terms of competition for the Actyon, whatever you want to pronounce it, there's plenty. There's loads of competition in this area of the market space. I'm not going to mention even half of them by this list that I'm about to give you. So it's going to be things such as the Nissan Qashqai, the Kia Sportage, the Hyundai Tucson, the Renault Austral, you know, maybe Toyota CHR, you know, the Honda ZR-V, those cars, you know, Ford. I said I wasn't going to mention them all, but here I'm starting to do it. Ford Puma, you know, Vauxhall Grandland, you know, the Peugeot, you know, that Grandland is a big car that's available at this type of price, you know. So, and again, you know, this is a big car as well, but that Grandland, it really is something quite, you know, it's a proper big family car, that. And again, they're all established names, and I get KGM have to establish themselves to be taken seriously, and okay, that's fine, but I do wonder whether or not they've made a bit of a mistake by just putting it in one trim level at such a high price, whereas data suggests a more lead-in model with a real sort of like, you know, target price of maybe sort of like early 30s might have just been enough maybe to lure people in and then upsell them into the higher grade models. Oh well. The KGM Actyon is a stylish, well, to my eyes anyway, well-equipped, versatile and practical family car. And these are all strengths that it's going to need if it's going to be competitive in the marketplace that it's preying into. Unfortunately, however, it also has its downsides. To me, that price point, it's ambitious to say the least, and as I say, I'm surprised that there isn't a lower specification model at a lower starting price just to get people into it. And also the fact that there isn't any form of hybridization in it as well, meaning running costs are going to be higher. And whether or not you're embracing the electric car or not, people like hybrids. They like the idea that the running costs are lower, and the usability of a hybrid is a big selling point, but there's none of that here. And then there's its on-road dynamics, which just lag behind the competition, not just the best in class, but dare I suggest some of the more average cars in the class as well. However, it is a world away from the SsangYong product that we used to have before, and as people like Hyundai, Kia, Nissan, Toyota, Honda have proven, over the years, a fairly average product can become quite a good and desirable one. But with the Actyon, it does show that there's still some way to go before a KGM can be as class competitive as some of its rivals. Thank you for watching another road test review on House of Cars. Please make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you're not already. And then once you've done that, make sure you then press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you've enjoyed this week's review, hopefully you have, give a little thumbs up for me. And as always, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think? Would you have this over something like a Nissan Qashqai or a Kia Sportage? Have you? Have you bought one? Why did you buy it? What made you think about it? Was it the fact that it was a well-specified car under the £40,000 bracket and you just liked the way that it looked? I think it's a good-looking car. I wouldn't blame you in that sense. Or are you just not sure about it because you're not sure about the brand? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Now, if you're into social media and you're a fan of the gram, I'm over on Instagram, so if you want to give me a follow there, please do, it certainly helps. And it's at House of Cars 1973. And remember, whether or not it is a large car or a small car, an old car or a new car, a slow car or a fast car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon.